Listen, my name's Jonathan Frakes. How are you? The only reason I'm doing this is because Will Wheaton said you guys were cool. He said, I've known him from the beginning. You should do this.
Have you ever been to Disneyland?
Affirmative.
That was definitely an e-ticket.
I can't believe all the new gadgets they've got now. For a while, we didn't even have a house phone, not to mention laser discs, high-def TV.
You are listening to the Great Big Beautiful Podcast. This week on the show,
depending upon who you talk to, only 5 to 15% of those ships that left West Africa ended up on these shores in North America. So the modern world as we know it was built on the backs of people of color who came from West Africa. So this is a global story.
here are your hosts, Jamie Green and Justin Connors.
Welcome to the Great Big Beautiful Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the GBB Podcast, Facebook.com/the GBB Podcast. And I'm going through this really fast because we are about to talk to a legend.
Yeah, no joke, right? That's not even hyperbole. That's just fact.
Oh, 100%. And you click the link because you know who it's going to be. And it's no other than LeVar Burton. And I don't know anyone that is our age or even younger than us and older than us. We all know who LeVar Burton is.
Well, sure. If you have been alive and had a pulse from like 1977 till today, you know who he is. Legend. I mean, it's not overselling him at all. And it's just, I mean, we talk about this in the interview that you're all about to hear, but he has this triple crown in his career that most actors would never even conceive of dreaming of, because they would be happy with having one in their own career.
Right.
I mean, between Roots, Star Trek: The Next Generation, and Reading Rainbow, LeVar Burton has had this profound impact, not just on popular culture, but on culture, like North American culture, that most actors never have the opportunity to have.
Yep. And you can really tell when talking, like we just got off the phone with him. You can really tell when talking to him, he puts so much care and thought, and he has so much passion into everything that he does and says. He's intentional. Like every single question he answered, he was intentional about what he said. And you could tell he was thinking about it, and he knew, and you could just, the passion dripped off of his words as he spoke.
Absolutely.
And we were talking a little bit off air, and we had to just start our intro. We were saying, Jamie, you were saying, what if Reading Rainbow happened and it didn't have LeVar Burton in it, the reboot?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, what if he hadn't gotten his hands on it to be able to reboot it in his own way, or what if PBS decided, we're just going to do a reboot like they do with everything else,
right?
We're going to hire some new up-and-coming actor, or even somebody else that is already established that we know, but it's not him. Would it have succeeded? And would it still be you don't want to say would it still be important, but that's kind of what I'm driving at. And I just can't see it. I can't see it succeeding without him, because aside from the brilliant message that it gives to young kids, and aside from the passion with which it's delivered, Reading Rainbow is LeVar Burton.
Yes.
Like, I can't even imagine that show or that product. Now it's an app, and it's a online bringing books and reading into classrooms. I can't even imagine that without him. I mean, the two are so integrally tied that you can't even really say that they're two different things. I mean, they are one and the same.
Well, and Reading Rainbow is not a job to him. I think it's his life. Like, you can tell he's really passionate about it, and children's literacy is his life. He loves it, and he breathes it and lives it. And I think that's a very important factor. Like, you may be able to hire anyone to just do it, and any actor could just step in and read a few books, go on some field trips. But if if it's not at the core of who they are, it shows. Yeah. And authenticity is huge.
Yeah. And he's been doing this for close up to 35 years now. So, I mean, this is who he is. This is beyond anything else I would I think he would probably agree with this, that of everything that he's done, Reading Rainbow is probably his life's work.
Right.
It's what he's been attached to the longest.
Exactly. And in this interview, we don't just talk to him about Reading Rainbow. No. We don't get LeVar Burton on the phone and only talk about one thing. We talk Roots. We talk Star Trek. We do.
I have to say, I had a question that I really kind of wanted to ask him, but we had a certain amount of time. As you can obviously guess, he's pretty busy, and we've been trying to nail down a specific time to talk to him for a long time now, and we just got our window today. And I kind of wanted to ask him about the animation that he's done. He's done a lot of voiceover work. So I just really wanted to name drop Captain Planet and the Planeteers and Transformer Rescue Bots, because those are just awesome shows.
Right,
and he was like, not just like a background character. Like, he has a pretty central character on both of those. But we just didn't get to it. So if you tuned in and you downloaded this episode with LeVar Burton because you wanted to hear him reminisce about Captain Planet, I got bad news for you. But if you want to hear, a brilliant conversation about Reading Rainbow, childhood literacy, Roots, the cultural impact of Roots, and why the reboot is going to blow our minds just like the original did, and Star Trek: The Next Generation, you are in the right place.
And believe me, he has very thoughtful and well put together answers. He's really passionate. And also, a little clickbait, stick around to the end. You're going to hear some career moments that make him cringe. Oh,
you clickbaited him.
I clickbaited you, but it's there.
They've already clicked, so it's okay.
You're there. You stay there till the end. You're not going to believe it.
These 3 shows LeVar Burton said he's embarrassed to have been on. You'll never believe.
You'll never believe. Number 2. All right, guys, we're going to play that interview for you right now with legendary LeVar Burton.
So I wanted to start out, it's not really a surprise. We're practically drowning these days in pop culture reboots and remakes, and rebooting franchises and properties from the 80s is particularly popular, but I don't think that I've ever been happier to see anything from my childhood make a return as I was when Reading Rainbow made a comeback a couple of years ago. How did you know that the time was right for it to come back in such a big way?
Well, I don't think you ever really know, unless you're a psychic, and I'm not. When Reading Rainbow was taken off the air in 2009, I saw that as an opportunity. I knew that the mission still existed. The need to connect emerging readers to literature so that they form a relationship with the written word still existed, even though the show was not going to be in rotation on PBS in their early childhood education slots. So that was it. It was at that time that my business partner and I sort of made a plan and tackled the gargantuan feat of securing the rights from WNED, the Buffalo Public Television Station. Once we were successful at having the rights in our hands, I knew immediately that television was not where I wanted to reboot Reading Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
There was a real opportunity in the digital space. I didn't know what we were going to do, but I knew it was going to be in the digital realm. And then the iPad came out. And then I thought, well, this is perfect, because on tablet computers, we can maintain the integrity of what Reading Rainbow was always about, combining good literature, good children's books with the video field trip, real world experience, giving kids an idea that, you can go anywhere and be anything. And so that became our focus, to translate what was a television show into an app experience, a digital online experience for kids that at its essence was still Reading Rainbow. The only thing that changed was the technology with which we delivered it. The television was the technology that we used in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what gave us access to the audience.
Yeah.
And if you want to reach kids today, I truly believe that you need to be on the devices that they want to be on.
Yeah. My daughter is in first grade right now, and she actually came home from school a couple weeks ago singing the Reading Rainbow theme.
No.
It warmed my heart because it was like that's something completely unprompted and I
That's
didn't push it on
awesome.
her, the way I might some other things, but it was just like something from my childhood has crossed that boundary naturally,
Yeah.
organically,
Yeah.
and is still so popular and so successful with kids today.
Yeah.
And what is it about the format of, I don't even know if you could call it a show anymore, but what it is about that format? Is it that message that you can go anywhere and do anything?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. It is that message. I think it is it's storytelling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's storytelling at its pure and simple form. It's all about the storytelling. It's about the quality of the literature, and in the digital realm, we have an opportunity to take these books and give them some bells and whistles. And at Reading Rainbow, we are very, very conscious of the need and necessity to not give them bells and whistles just for the sake of bells and whistles, but to have those interactions help tell the story, right? Serve the story.
Right.
Always first and foremost in our mind. And then, as I said before, the other half of our secret sauce is the video field trips. Mm-hmm. I do believe that we are creating some of the best video content for kids in the world, and I mean that, and we always have. And so it's the quality of the storytelling of our video field trips combined with the magic of the literature that does the job.
Right. Now, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say you've gone on hundreds of adventures and location shots for the show over the years. So do you have any that still stick with you after all this time?
I remember almost all of them.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. That's how indelible these experiences are for me. I have done some remarkable and had phenomenal adventures myself over these 33 some odd years. I learned how to fly a plane in the show Ruth Law Thrills a Nation. That is me landing that airplane. For Dive to the Coral Reefs, I learned how to scuba dive. For Hill of Fire, we went to Hawaii. We stood at the summit of Kilauea in the middle of a volcano erupting, a fountain of lava going off over my shoulder a quarter of a mile away. These are experiences that I will treasure for the rest of my life.
One of the new Reading Rainbow initiatives is Skybrary, and it's you guys are hoping to bring it into more classrooms. What can you tell us about that?
Well, when we launched the Reading Rainbow app in the summer of 2012, immediately one of the things that came to our attention was that teachers were using it and sort of rigging the system. Reading Rainbow has always been a popular brand with teachers. When we were a television show, it was one of the most used television resources in classrooms in North America. And we found out that teachers were taking the Reading Rainbow app and sort of loading 5 and 6 and 7 kids on a profile, because for the consumer product, you could only have five profiles, 5 identities, right? And so we thought, whoa, we can do better than that. We can do much better than that. Teachers deserve a version of what it is we're doing that's designed for them. And so thanks to the Kickstarter campaign, that's exactly what we were able to do. We took our digital library, augmented it with even more books that are aligned to Common Core, more nonfiction in addition to our fiction literature, took all of our video field trips. We added lesson plans. We worked with educators and created lesson plans for a 40-week, a school year's worth of content based on what we've got in the app. You can roster 35 kids. There are printouts that you can hand out to kids. It's a turnkey solution for teachers to use in the classroom with their emerging readers. And I'm really proud of what we are continuing to do in terms of connecting kids to literature and thereby having an impact on their lives. for the whole of their lives.
I'm wondering if has the vetting process, for lack of a better term, changed at all for how you choose the books between when you were the show and then now for Skybrary, and if you could give a peek behind, sort of how that selection process is made.
Well, to pull back the curtain a little bit on the original television series, we featured one book per episode. Mm-hmm. We did, on average, for the 26 years, we did about 10 to 12 new episodes a year. So, and then there were 3, sometimes 4 review books that were also part of each episode. Mm-hmm. So we had very few slots for exposure, and that's simply not the case. We are a library. We're a digital library now, and we feature hundreds of books. And in Skybrary School, there are close to 1,000, probably 1,000 now, because we add new content, new books, new videos every week. So there's over 1,000 books in our digital library now, and close to 300 video field trips, new video field trips. And so we work these days with publishers, both large, established publishers, medium-sized publishers, small independent publishers. We published our first book, which was my first children's book, The Rhino Who Swallowed a Storm, last year. We have the opportunity to feature and highlight many, many, many more books today than we ever did as a television show. Yeah.
Is this the future of childhood literacy? I mean, is it necessary to take everything digital?
Everything, no. Is it necessary that we include digital in our diet? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe that going forward, we will, as a society, come to the conclusion that it is not necessarily sustainable to continue to make books out of trees. We're going to need to continue this shift from print to digital. Now, having said that, we're still going to print books.
Right.
Right? And among the category of books we will always print, I believe, is children's books, because of that very essential defining lap experience, passing that tradition from one person to another, from generation to generation. It's an essential part of who we are. That will never change. However, we will all be consuming a lot more of our reading material on digital devices going forward.
Right. That being said, and with that understanding that is the direction that we are ultimately going, how do we save libraries? Like, how do we still get kids and families into our libraries?
That's a great question. We are having to look at all sorts of necessities for adaptation in society today based on evolution and the evolution of technology and its role in our lives. I think that libraries will play an increasingly more important role for us, as they are the repositories of all of that printed treasure.
Yeah.
And they will become palaces of pleasure for that treasure.
I love it. I love it. Shifting gears just a little bit, since we're coming up on the next week, I believe, is when Roots airs.
Yeah.
Now,
talk about reboots.
Talk about reboots, exactly. Now, Kunta Kinte was your breakout role, and knowing what you went through at the beginning of your career and how that changed your life, did you have any advice for Malachi Kirby?
Only to reassure him of the importance of him interpreting the role through his own lens.
Yeah.
Which he does magnificently. And he didn't need any help from me. But he did.
I'm thrilled to see it. I'm super excited, but
I am too. I'm really proud of this.
Yeah.
I really am. Because, number one, I'm not a huge fan of remakes. I often think that they failed to live up to the legacy of the originals, and that's not always true. I mean, look, and I don't believe I'm fooling myself. I believe that Star Trek: The Next Generation absolutely lived up to the legacy of the original, and in some ways added to that legacy. In many ways, in fact, added to that legacy. I believe that we nailed it in the transition of Reading Rainbow as a television show to a digital experience for kids, and I believe that we are positioned to continue to be a part of the solution as to how we can better educate our kids. And I never believed that Roots would ever be remade. I didn't believe that it should be remade. But once I was convinced that it needed to be remade, that we needed to share this story with a generation that did not know it and needed to, then it became my point of focus to do everything within my power to help make it as good an experience for the audience as possible. And one that satisfied my need to do honor to the original and to make the ancestors, Alex Haley and David Wolper and Stan Margulies, David Green, the director, all of those who worked on the first Roots, to make them proud.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Okay, Roots came out at a special time in the history of television, and I can't really think of another show that had such a lasting cultural impact. Do you think something like that is still possible in today's fragmented TV model?
If you're asking me if I think that we can garner the sorts of unprecedented numbers, viewing audience, ratings, share that
Right.
Roots, no. However, we are premiering and broadcasting almost day and date for the rest of the world as we are here in the United States on May 30th. So Roots eventually had a worldwide audience, but it rolled out over several years.
Mm-hmm.
Roots will be seen by an international audience in a week and a half. And there will, I suspect there will be an international conversation, which is great, because when you think about it, depending upon who you talk to, only 5 to 15% of those ships that left West Africa ended up on these shores in North America.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of those ships went to the Caribbean, to Europe. So the modern world as we know it was built on the backs of people of color who came from West Africa. So this is a global story.
Mm-hmm.
It may be being told through the eyes of this particular family that landed in Annapolis, Maryland. But this is this is the history of how the world that we know today was built.
Yeah, and that immediate global audience was not something that you could have had back in the 70s and the 80s.
And then think about it. Roots, when it aired originally, it was broadcast in 8 consecutive nights, 12 hours over 8 consecutive nights. Well, that's kind of like the precursor to binge watching, isn't it?
Yeah, that is true. That's a good point.
The original Netflix.
So I think that I'm very encouraged. I think our timing is really good. I think that Roots is relevant,
Mm-hmm.
and as timely, if not more timely, than it was when it aired in 1977. I think that we have an audience that deserves to hear this story, needs to hear this story, and is primed to see this story.
Yeah.
And
I agree with you. I think it is.
I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I think it is perfect timing, and I'm just very excited to see it. If you had never been cast in Roots, or if your acting career had never taken off, what would you be doing right now?
Oh man.
now the tough questions come out, right?
Yeah, at the end, you couldn't have led with this. Well, before I started studying theater, I was in the seminary. I was studying for the priesthood. But I had left that part of my life behind when I embarked on my theater arts career. If it hadn't been Roots, I probably would have graduated with my BFA in theater, moved to New York, and I hoped that I would be working on the East Coast. I'd be working on Broadway. That was my intention, anyway. I wasn't thinking about television at all. You know, the auditioning for Kunta Kinte as a sophomore it absolutely changed the course and trajectory of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to think that I would have been successful at manifesting that dream of going and working in New York on Broadway.
I don't know if you watched Chaos on the Bridge, Shatner's documentary about Next Gen.
I haven't seen it yet, no.
It reveals a lot of the behind-the-scenes drama and fighting that was going on among the creators during the first few seasons of the show.
Yeah.
And I'm sure...
Was there a lot of chaos?
What's that?
There was a lot of chaos?
There was a lot of chaos, not just a clever name.
The tension makes for great drama.
I mean, as an actor on the show, how much of that were you aware of at the time?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
No. We were, well, at least I was, and I think I can speak for my castmates. We were trying to find the characters. We had our hands full. I don't know if you remember this, but at the beginning, there was all sorts of skepticism.
Oh, sure.
There was, which I found really kind of baffling, because I'm a Star Trek fan myself, and my assumption was that Star Trek fans and aficionados would be open-minded by definition. But the overwhelming feeling was, oh, no.
They
I
like
only got
what they
room in my
like.
heart for one Star Trek, and that's Kirk and company.
Yeah,
so,
they like what they like. Don't mess with what they know to be true.
So we had a real uphill battle those first couple of seasons. And I know, because we've had this conversation among ourselves, we all feel that it wasn't until the third season that we really began to hit our stride in terms of the storytelling, the writing, and the acting. It all began to come together. And even behind the scenes, I mean, the first couple of seasons, it was not uncommon to work, 12, 14, 16, sometimes 18-hour day. But after a while, we got grooved at a very visual effects intensive shooting schedule. We shot every single one of those episodes in 7 days.
It's amazing.
7 days per episode.
Yeah.
26 episodes a year, 10 months straight. It was grueling. And we had to get up to speed. It took the first couple of hiatuses, we were all exhausted.
Sure.
But we began to build up a muscle. By the time the hiatus came between seasons 4 and 5, we were like, hey, what else can I do during this 2-month vacation? It's like a muscle. You have to build up that kind of stamina. You have to groove that writer's room. There's gonna be changes. There's gonna be flux. There's gonna be upheaval on the producing and the writing staff.
Sure.
And you've got to sort that stuff out to find out who the A-team is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after so many years of playing the character, you're saying it was so hard to find the groove at the beginning, but I'm sure that there are aspects of Geordi at the end of the end of the run, the last movie, that were all you and didn't come from the writers at all.
Oh yeah.
So when you think back or you look at that character, which parts of him are actually parts of you?
I had a conscious intention to infuse Geordi with a spirit of we can do anything.
Yeah.
That I love my job, because I'm so grateful to be here on the flagship of the Federation. And Geordi was a shit-hot engineer. He was very confident in his abilities. And I think in terms of the family, Geordi had sort of a lighter energy signature.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't take himself as seriously as Worf.
No, he didn't, but he knew
or
his stuff, like you were
Picard.
saying.
Yeah, he like I'm saying, he was a stone cold pro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You, in addition to being Geordi, you also directed a number of Star Trek episodes from every series except
Yeah.
the original, obviously. Do you have any interest, or maybe you can't even talk about it, but is there any interest on your part of getting involved with the new show that's coming up?
You know, I watched the trailer that CBS released.
Yeah.
And it was like, ooh, goosebumps.
Yeah, right?
Right. So, you know, we'll see. If they ask me to come and direct, I'd have to say, yeah. I think Brian Fuller's a talented guy,
Yeah, definitely.
and he's a fan,
Yeah.
Right.
which makes a difference to me.
Mm-hmm.
That bodes well that he's a fan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've cautiously optimistic. I hate that
Yeah.
phrase because I've been using it so much about so many different things, but
Yeah.
I am very hopeful for this show.
Yeah, I am too, and I know how deep the thirst runs for, you know, another Star Trek television
Yeah.
series, and so here it comes.
Here it comes.
I hope the ship don't crash, unless it's written into
Unless
the
that's part of
storyline,
the
course.
script.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
that's just part of it. So you've been lucky enough to be involved in a number of projects that truly became cultural touchstones, Roots, Star Trek, Reading Rainbow. Is there any aspect of your career that you hold above all else, the gem in your crown, if you will?
I've got a hat trick that most actors. I think we're all lucky to get one of those
Oh, yeah.
Right.
in a career. To have this triple crown is really quite extraordinary. I'm very grateful.
Yeah. That's also due to your talent, though. That didn't just happen.
I love what I do. I
Yeah.
genuinely do. I absolutely love what I do, and it was Roots that gave me the courage to really strive to be involved with other properties in the popular culture that do more than just entertain. And I've tried to carry that standard and make decisions by that standard as best as I've been able for the past 40 years.
By contrast, are there any moments of your career that just kind of make you cringe?
Well, I did Fantasy Island, although Sammy Davis Jr. did play my father in that episode. I also did The Love Boat. I'm not going to lie to you. I did Murder, She Wrote.
Well, but see, those are shows. I feel like if you were an actor in the late 70s or early 80s, everybody did those shows. It was
Right.
like being on Star Trek: The Next Generation as a working actor. Like everybody got an episode.
Yeah. So, you know, there you have it.
Yeah. But those aren't really that cringeworthy. Those are.
Look, a couple of years ago, I did a zombie movie. Because I believe that everybody should have at least one zombie movie on their resume. And so I've checked off that box now.
Oh, I'm going to go find that now because I haven't seen it.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
LeVar, I know we don't have any more time with you. I could easily sit here for another hour and talk, but thank you so much for your time.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you.
Well, that's it for this week on the Great Big Beautiful Podcast. It is amazing how half an hour just goes by so quick when you're talking to someone like LeVar Burton.
Right? I know. I mean, honestly, we could have sat there for a long time. I mean, he's one of those. It's a conversation you love to have. You know, I mean, it's not somebody else. You know, when you do certain interviews and you're like, you know, so tell me about your new project.
Right.
Why did you like being this character? You know, I mean, this was. If you've listened to our show before and you know some of the guests that we've had on, you know that reading and childhood literacy and children's books are hugely important to us as well. We've had a lot of authors on, a lot of illustrators, a lot of children's book creators. It's something that's really near and dear to my heart. It's literally what I get paid to do. My day job is working for a company that works in education. Almost all of my adult life has been dedicated to education in some form. So this is a very important topic. And I'm just thrilled to be able to share some of this with you guys.
And I can't stop thinking about his answer about roots, just how it's going to impact the world, and his answer about it going international. Yeah. And it was beautiful what he had to say about it. LeVar Burton.
Yeah. And I wasn't lying. I really am looking forward to seeing this. I don't know if this episode is going to be before or after it airs on the History Channel. If it's before, I'm super excited to watch it. And if it's after, wasn't that amazing?
Because it's going to be.
Of course it's going to be.
Now, one thing I should have floated by him was what he thought about Jonathan Frakes' Kardashian-style pilot in space, him and Troy. Do you remember?
Yeah, you should have asked about that.
See if he would want to direct something like that.
Maybe it's for the best we didn't ask.
Yeah, I think, we won't go there. All right, guys, thank you so much for clicking subscribe. Hello to all of our new listeners. We see you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for liking our Facebook page. For the last little bit, we've noticed influx in likes and comments and different things like that. So thank you. Thank you for coming and listening and taking part in the conversation. We love having you. And I mean, we're just doing this for us. No, we're totally doing it. Like we want to talk to people like LeVar. We're a lot of people like yourself. You may not ever have the chance to talk to LeVar. So we'll ask the questions for you so you can hear, something beyond the canned, usual style of interview that you'll hear other places. So I'm hoping we bring that to the table.
As am I.
I'm hoping. If
Good
not,
job, Justin.
If not, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's that's what we do, is we want to bring people's creative journeys and unique perspectives to our audience, and we try to steer clear of the canned dime a dozen type of questions and ask something that's a little bit unique, a little bit different, and try to get good conversations.
Jamie has a star on his wall behind it for every time we've heard. That's a great question. He reaches over and he draws another one.
If I had a nickel, I might almost have, a quarter by now.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. We are at the GBB Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. I am Justin at 140 Justin C.
I am Jamie at the Roarbots.
And you've been listening to the Great Big Beautiful Podcast. If you haven't hit subscribe, do it now. Have a great week.
Take care.
This podcast has been a production of the Geek Dad Podcast Network. If you've enjoyed this content, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/geekdad.